and welcome. In 1824, Peter Mark Roget of Thesaurus fame stepped in front of the Royal Society in London and presented his theory of the persistence of vision with regard to moving objects, thus paving the way for the inventors, artists, and businessmen who gave us the movies. This is their story. The contention that through some peculiarity of the eye an image is retained for a fraction of a second longer than it actually appears sent inventors and scientists scrambling throughout Europe and the United States with countless demonstrations of Roget's principle. Devices such as the zoetrope, a slotted revolving drum with slits for pictures that seemed to move. Another was the praxinoscope of Emile Renaud, which added mirrors to the drum, which made movement more fluid. Renaud was constantly improving his invention, that by 1889 he was able to enlarge his picture and project it on the wall using the magic lantern. He mounted his 700-plus hand-drawn separate images on reels. He continued his praxinoscope theater until driven out of business by the rival movies early in the next century. In 1839 in France, Louis Daguerre was able to reproduce an image on a metal plate and reduce the exposure time from 8 hours to less than 30 minutes. Thus is born the daguerreotype process of photography. The subsequent introduction of the gelatin emulsions developed by George Eastman in 1888 brought photography within reach of everyone. The greatest contribution to the development of the motion picture camera came from Thomas Edison and his talented assistant, William Kennedy Laurie Dixon, who in 1889 devised the sprocket system, which moved film through the camera and is still standard for 16 and 35 millimeter film today. Dixon also managed to link up the pictures with Edison's phonograph to create the kinetoscope, film with sound. Edison figured that he could make a profit with the kinetoscope, as he had with the penny in the slot phonographs. The kinetoscope was a peep show, which ran a continuous loop of film about a minute in length. For the moment, the sound aspects were ignored as Edison and his crew concentrated on little one-minute subjects for those machines. They were photographed in the Black Maria, the world's first film studio built near his West Orange laboratories in New Jersey in 1893. By 1894, peep show parlors sprang up all over the United States and Europe. In France, inventors Louis and Auguste Lumiere patented the cinematograph in 1895. This combination camera, contact printer, projector weighs only 10 pounds compared to Edison's kinetoscope. It is hand-cranked and can be used to shoot street scenes, then process the film, and in conjunction with an arc lantern, project the result. The Lumieres present the world with the first commercial screening on December 28, 1895 in Paris. The program includes minute-long sequences with the highlight showing a train pulling into a station. Early audiences, fearing the train will burst through the screen, run screaming for the exits. The Lumieres become the world's second largest manufacturers of photographic products after George Eastman. putting their invention to practical use, sending cameramen around the world in search of fresh subjects for documentaries, filming various subjects including the first movies of the Brooklyn Bridge. In the meanwhile, in 1896, Edison's The Kiss caused a sensation as audiences saw a harmless kiss in full close-up, which made it much more real. It was seeing real things in motion that attracted audiences to the movies. They accepted the flat, flickering images as reality. Soon, however, the novelty began to wear thin. Parades, street scenes, acrobats, and dancers lost their appeal, and Edison's invention was relegated to the position of chaser in vaudeville, clearing out the audiences for the next show. What saved the movies was the introduction of the narrative. In France, Georges Melies, a professional magician, became intrigued with the movie camera and combined his magic tricks with stories. He is considered to be the inventor of cinematic special effects. As crude as they may have been back in 1899 when he began, his celebrated A Trip to the Moon, 1902, demonstrated the narrative powers of the new medium. In his glass-enclosed studio outside of Paris, Melies created miraculous appearances and disappearances by stopping the camera in the middle of a scene. He mastered the technique of double exposure and superimposition, producing extraordinary effects for that period. Melies invented the technique of the dissolve, which is still used today. His films were widely seen in this country and convinced producers that film could and should be longer than 1 minute. In those days, films were sold outright and not rented, so anyone with a print could make copies and sell them. This pirating practice continued until authorized film rental exchanges were set up, but by that time, Melies was driven out of business. He was found years later tending a newsstand in Paris. He died in 1938 in a home for destitute actors. In 1903, a film appeared that was to revolutionize all movie making, breaking decisively from stage forms and techniques and pointing towards a genuine filmic style. Up until this period, the camera was a passive observer of the action on a stage, never moving, always capturing the action as it happened on stage. Actors would appear from the rear of the wings with the action arranged horizontally across the stage. The Great Train Robbery by Edwin S. Porter, one of America's pioneer director photographers, revealed for the first time the power of the cut in telling a story on the screen. Porter switched back and forth between characters. Each scene, taken from a single camera position, is complete in itself and advances the action one step further. This was also the first time anyone would juggle with time using parallel editing. Porter also managed to swing or pan the camera at times and to tilt downward, the first time any of this was ever done. The Great Train Robbery is a significant event in motion picture history on so many levels. It established a single reel, 8 to 12 minutes, as the standard length of American films. It set the fashion and pattern for Western films, and it inspired other directors in exploring the implication of Porter's style of editing. His free juggling of time and space. Cameras were no longer confined to the studio. They were taken on location, and scenes, combined with shots staged against painted sets, were assembled and given their final form at the cutting or editing bench by the directors. Interest in the movies revived throughout the world, and Nickelodeons and store shows sprang up in almost every neighborhood, and movies became the poor man's theater. In 1908 until 1912, the Motion Picture Patents Company, organized by Thomas Edison, controlled every facet of the infant industry in the United States. Comprised of the largest producers and distributors, it sought control through the pooling of patents. It licensed cameras solely to its members and the projectors only to theater owners who would agree to purchase films from their member companies. They limited the length of films to one reel and blocked identification of the actors appearing in their films for fear they might demand more money if they became well known. The members of the trust waged constant and sometimes bloody battles with the independents who kept turning up with foreign cameras and fresh ideas. One of these independents was Adolf Zucker, a former furrier who acquired the rights to Queen Elizabeth with the most famous stage actress of that time, Sarah Bernhardt. Feeling that the time was ripe for longer pictures, it was 4 reels. He approached the trust, but was blocked in every way. Instead, he convinced the Lyceum Theater owner in New York City to showcase the movie. And on July 12, 1912, Americans saw their first feature-length film and paid the unprecedented sum of $1 a ticket. The presentation was a huge national success and led to Zucker's formation of Famous Players in Famous Plays, the precursor to Paramount Pictures. In 1907, a young man named Lawrence Griffith approached Edwin S. Porter at the Edison studio in the Bronx with his screen adaptation of Tosca, which Porter rejected. But he offered Griffith the leading role in his film Rescued from an Eagle's Nest. Griffith, newly married, needed the money badly and consented at $5 a day. Christened David Warwick Griffith, D.W. Griffith, considered the father of film technique, was the 5th child of an impoverished Confederate colonel. He became a fixture at Edison's Biograph studio, and what happened between 1908 and 1912 is probably unparalleled in the emergence of any art form. Griffith took the raw element of movie making as they had evolved up to that time and created a medium more intimate than theater, more vivid than literature, and more affecting than poetry. He created the art of the film, its language and syntax. He created ways to use his camera functionally, developed editing from the crude assembly of unrelated shots. One of his first moves was to shift the camera position in mid-scene and brought the camera closer to his actors to emphasize gestures and reactions. The public will never buy only half an actor his bosses protested, but the public did. He shuffled time and space freely and trained his actors in a quieter, more subtle and intimate acting style. As he moved his camera closer to them, he realized that the theater's eloquent gestures and over-emphatic facial expression became awkward and artificial. That is why he developed a host of young people, preferably without stage experience, to work in his films. Griffith used extreme close-ups, not only on his actors, but also on objects, and made that part of his developing story. What the close-up did for Griffith was to force the audience to see what the director wants it to see. It concentrates the attention on the significant detail, whether an object, an actor, or a portion of an actor. Griffith was able to reveal, filmically, the innermost thoughts and emotions of his characters. Audiences found Griffith's pictures more realistic, more convincing, and more human than anything shown upon the screen at that time, and looked forward to each new Biograph release with greater enthusiasm than to the films of the other studios. By 1912, the two-reeler had become the standard for drama. Pushing the envelope further, Griffith sought to make longer films. Working secretly in California, he completed the biblical epic Judith of Bethulia in 1913 in 4 reels. His employers were furious, shelved the film, and relegated Griffith from directing to supervising production. Griffith quit the studio and took many of his stock company actors with him. After leaving Biograph, he joined the Mutual Company, where he would astonish the world with the most powerful, ambitious, and controversial motion picture ever made. The Birth of a Nation is considered to this day as the greatest achievement in movie history. We had read Thomas Dixon's novel, The Klansman, a story of the Civil War, Reconstruction, and the rise of the Ku Klux Klan. Being a Southerner and son of a Confederate officer, Griffith was drawn instinctively to its theme. A little family ruined by the war, then fighting to preserve its integrity amidst carpetbaggers and renegade blacks. He poured himself into the production using all his resources and finances. Devised unheard of effects, battle scenes photographed in extreme long shots, reminiscent of Brady's Civil War photographs. Action shots taken in extreme close-up. The climactic ride of the clans was photographed with the camera mounted low on the back of a moving truck. He used all the known resources of the camera and invented more. The iris, the mask, the vignette, split screen, and triple split